This is Shia LaBeouf. He was one of Disney's biggest rising stars, beloved by millions of kids and on track to become the next Tom Hanks. And then he disappeared. Major studios stopped working with him. He wasn't getting callbacks. He became known more for his bizarre public meltdowns than his acting. Arrests started piling up. Art installations got weirder and weirder. It was almost like someone had flipped a switch and sent his entire career into a downward spiral. But here's the thing. Shia didn't just fade away quietly like most fallen child stars. He fought back. He got weird. He challenged Hollywood's entire system. And in doing so, he exposed something much darker about the entertainment industry that chews up child actors and spits them out the moment they try to be something more than a product. Shia LaBeouf was born on June 11th, 1986 in Los Angeles, California. And right from the beginning, his childhood was nothing like the wholesome Disney image he would later project on screen. His father, Jeffrey, was a Vietnam War veteran struggling with addiction and PTSD. His mother, Shayna, was a visual artist and former dancer who became the family's primary breadwinner. Money was always tight. The family moved constantly, living in some of the roughest neighborhoods in LA. Shia later described his childhood as being raised by wolves. His parents were hippies, artists, and free spirits who exposed him to adult situations way too early. By the time he was 5 years old, Shia had already witnessed his father's struggles with heroin addiction. He said, "I grew up with an addict. I saw needles in arms. I saw this dude have seizures in front of me as a child." Most kids in that situation would shut down, but Shia did the opposite. He became a performer. He learned that if he could make people laugh or entertain them, he could control the chaos around him. At age 10, Shia started doing stand-up comedy at local clubs around Los Angeles. Not kid-friendly comedy either. He was doing raw, edgy material inspired by his father and the dysfunction he grew up around. But making strangers laugh didn't put food on the table. His family was broke. So Shia started looking for acting work, cold calling agents from the Yellow Pages. No connections, no Hollywood parents, just a scrappy kid trying to help his family survive. He said, "I got into acting because my family was going through a tough financial situation. My mom was a dancer, but she couldn't dance anymore. My dad was a vet and couldn't work, so I started working." After dozens of rejections, Shia finally landed his first agent. And in 2000, at just 14 years old, he booked the role that would change his life. Disney Channel cast him as Louis Stevens in the sitcom Even Stevens. The show became a massive hit, and Shia quickly became one of the network's biggest stars. For 3 seasons, Shia played the lovable goofball little brother. Kids loved him, parents loved him, Disney executives loved him. In 2003, he even won a Daytime Emmy Award for Outstanding Performer in a children's series.
And the Emmy goes to...
Gotta love the Disney Channel, Shia LaBeouf.
He was living the dream that millions of kids fantasized about. But behind the scenes, Shia was already starting to feel trapped. While working on Even Stevens, Shia began to realize that Disney wasn't interested in him as a person. They were interested in him as a product, a brand, a carefully manufactured image that sold toys and lunchboxes. He wasn't allowed to grow up, experiment, or be himself. He was Louis Stevens, and Louis Stevens had to stay wholesome, safe, and marketable. Shia's father was still struggling with addiction. Despite his son's success, Jeffrey LaBeouf couldn't stay clean. Shia later said, "My dad was on drugs. He was in and out of rehab. I was paying for everything, and I was 14 years old." Now remember, this is a kid who's barely a teenager, supporting his entire family while playing a cartoon character on TV and watching his father spiral. That's a level of pressure most adults couldn't handle. But Shia kept working. He kept performing, because that's what he had been trained to do since he was 5 years old. Perform to survive. In 2003, Even Stevens was canceled after 3 seasons. And just like that, Shia's childhood was over. He was 17 years old, Emmy-winning, and suddenly unemployed. Most child stars fade into obscurity at this point, but Shia was determined to prove he was more than just a Disney kid. He started auditioning for film roles, serious roles, roles that would show Hollywood he could do more than make kids laugh. And in 2007, he got his big break. Steven Spielberg cast him as Sam Witwicky in Transformers. This was massive. Transformers wasn't just another movie. It was a $150 million blockbuster, directed by Michael Bay and produced by one of the most powerful filmmakers in Hollywood. For Shia, this was his chance to break free from the Disney image and become a legitimate movie star. And it worked.
It's amazing. It's the most kick-ass action movie ever made. Anybody that enjoyed the last one will definitely enjoy this one.
Transformers grossed over $709 million worldwide and became one of the highest-grossing films of 2007. Shia LaBeouf was suddenly everywhere. Magazine covers, talk shows, red carpets. He was Hollywood's next big thing. But just as everything was falling into place, Shia started to realize something. Hollywood wasn't any different than Disney. They still wanted him to be a product. A bankable leading man who showed up, said his lines, stood next to explosions, and didn't ask questions.
Situationally, it was rough. I had 8 fingers. We were in the middle of a writer's strike. I have 20 stitches in my eye. Yeah. It was really brutal. That movie was very hard to make, and I think just in terms of the geography, you get very confused. You're in Egypt, and you're in a wormhole, and you're in Cancun, and you don't know who's fighting who. I just think the movie's hard to understand, and when movies get complicated, they're not fun to watch.
After Transformers became a global phenomenon, Shia reprised his role in Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen in 2009. The film made even more money than the original, grossing over $836 million worldwide. On paper, Shia was living the dream. He was 23 years old, starring in billion-dollar franchises and getting paid millions of dollars per film. But behind the scenes, Shia was miserable. He later described working on the Transformers sequels as soulless. He felt like a prop in Michael Bay's explosion-filled commercials rather than an actor in a real story. In interviews, he didn't hold back his criticism. He said, "I love Michael Bay, but I don't think he's a genius. I think he's a very talented filmmaker who makes very profitable movies, but they're not artistic." He also admitted, "The Transformers films were not satisfying to me as an actor. They were just about stunts and explosions." Now, here's the thing. Most actors in Shia's position would have just smiled, cashed the checks, and kept their mouths shut. But Shia couldn't do that. He was too honest, too raw, too unwilling to play the Hollywood game. And that honesty was about to cost him everything. In 2010, Shia appeared in Wall Street, Money Never Sleeps, directed by Oliver Stone. He also starred in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, alongside Harrison Ford in 2008. Both films underperformed critically, and Shia publicly criticized them as well. He said, "I dropped the ball in the Indiana Jones movie. I think the audience felt it. I felt it." Studios started to see Shia as difficult, ungrateful, a liability. Here was a guy they had turned into a star, and he was biting the hand that fed him. Hollywood doesn't forgive that, but Shia wasn't done. In fact, he was just getting started. By 2011, Shia was done with blockbusters. He wanted to do real art. He started working with smaller indie directors like Lars von Trier on Nymphomaniac and John Hillcoat on Lawless. These weren't safe Disney movies or CGI action films. These were raw, challenging, sexually explicit dramas that pushed boundaries, and critics loved it. Shia was finally being recognized as a serious actor, but Hollywood executives, they were less impressed. Shia was no longer the safe, bankable star they could market to families. He was becoming unpredictable, weird. And in Hollywood, weird doesn't sell unless you're already an established legend like Johnny Depp or Nicolas Cage. To make matters worse, Shia's personal life was spiraling. In 2012, he was arrested for refusing to leave a Chicago bar.
I have rights. I have rights. I'm an American.
Come on, talk to me.
You got me in my hotel, arrested me in my hotel for doing what, sir?
Let's go.
Yo, you really got these cuffs on me heavy, bro.
Let me out. Listen, can we talk, me and you?
No, we can't talk nothing.
Listen, I'm not the one that arrested
American.
you.
I pay my taxes. Get these shits off.
In 2014, he was arrested again in New York City for disrupting a performance of Cabaret on Broadway. Witnesses said he was slapping actors' butts, yelling at performers, and smoking cigarettes in the theater. The media had a field day. Headlines painted Shia as a washed-up former child star having public meltdowns. Social media turned him into a meme. Hollywood started distancing itself from him completely. But then, something strange happened. Shia started leaning into the chaos. In 2014, Shia LaBeouf did something that no one saw coming. He showed up to the Berlin Film Festival premiere of Nymphomaniac, wearing a tuxedo and a brown paper bag over his head. Written on the bag in black marker were the words, "I am not famous anymore." The internet exploded. People thought he had lost his mind. Some called it a publicity stunt. Others thought it was a genuine mental breakdown. But Shia? Shia called it performance art. He said, "I'm exploring my celebrity and what it means. I'm reclaiming my narrative." And he wasn't kidding. Over the next few years, Shia launched a series of bizarre, provocative art installations that blurred the line between performance, protest, and mental collapse. In February 2014, he opened an art installation in Los Angeles called "I Am Sorry." Visitors were invited to enter a room one at a time where Shia sat alone at a table wearing the same paper bag over his head, silently crying. On the table in front of him were random objects, a whip, a bowl of Hershey's Kisses, a copy of Transformers on DVD, and pliers. Some people said it was genius. Others said it was pretentious nonsense nonsense. But one visitor, a woman who later came forward, claimed that Shia was sexually assaulted during the installation. She said she entered the room, removed his clothing, and performed a sexual act on him without his consent while he sat there silently, committed to the performance.
And there's a table with a bunch of there's like a wrench, flowers, Jack Daniels, Hershey's Kisses, and there's a lady standing behind it that says, pick one of these things and you can take it in there with you. So I took a flower out of the vase, and then she like escorts you through this black curtain, and he's just sitting in this kind of dark room in front of a table with his hands like this, and then he has a bag over his head that says, I'm not famous anymore. But you can still see his eyes, and it was kind of wet under, like it looked like he had been crying, and his eyes were like so sad. So I just immediately got so awkward because you're like...
Shia later confirmed this happened. He said, one woman came in and whipped my legs for 10 minutes. Another woman came in and proceeded to rape me. There were hundreds of people in line when she walked out with disheveled hair and smudged lipstick. Nobody helped me. This is where things get really complicated. Was this art? Was this exploitation? Was Shia a victim? Or was he complicit in creating a situation where something like this could happen? The art world didn't know how to respond. Hollywood certainly didn't. In 2015, he launched another installation called All My Movies, where he sat in a Los Angeles theater and watched every single movie he had ever been in, back to back, for 3 days straight. A live camera streamed his face the entire time. No breaks, no commentary, just Shia, silently watching himself age on screen. And then in 2017, Shia launched his most controversial project yet, He Will Not Divide Us. The installation was a direct response to Donald Trump's election. Shia set up a camera outside the Museum of the Moving Image in New York City, with a sign that read, He Will Not Divide Us. The idea was simple. Anyone could come up to the camera and repeat the phrase 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the next 4 years.
Divide us. He will not 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 divide us.
It started as a peaceful protest, but it quickly descended into chaos. Right-wing trolls from Fortune showed up to disrupt the stream. Fights broke out. Shia himself got into physical altercations on camera. At one point, he shoved a neo-Nazi and was arrested for assault and harassment. The installation was shut down. Shia moved it to Albuquerque, New Mexico. It was shut down again. He moved it to an undisclosed location in the middle of nowhere and pointed the camera at a flag. Within 48 hours, internet trolls used airplane contrails, star patterns, and ambient sounds to triangulate the location, drove out to the middle of nowhere, and replaced Shia's flag with a MAGA hat. The internet called it the greatest game of capture the flag in history. But for Shia, it was another reminder that the world saw him as a joke. Just when it seemed like Shia had completely lost the plot, he did something that shocked everyone. He made the best film of his career. In 2019, Shia wrote and starred in Honey Boy, a semi-autobiographical film about his relationship with his abusive father. The film was raw, honest, and devastating. Shia played a character based on his own father, and he didn't hold back. He portrayed Jeffrey LaBeouf as an alcoholic, emotionally abusive man who exploited his son's success. Critics called it Shia's redemption. For the first time in years, people weren't talking about his arrests or his art installations. They were talking about his talent, his vulnerability, his courage to tell a deeply personal story. Honey Boy felt like a turning point. It felt like Shia had finally found his way back. But unfortunately, the story doesn't end there. In December 2020, singer and actress FKA Twigs filed a lawsuit against Shia, accusing him of sexual battery, assault, and emotional abuse during their relationship in 2019. The lawsuit detailed horrific allegations, including claims that Shia knowingly gave her a sexually transmitted disease, choked her in her sleep, threatened to crash a car with her in it, and subjected her to relentless emotional and physical abuse.
He would often just start having an argument with me in the middle of the night, start accusing me of doing all sorts of things, planning to leave him in my head. He'd wake me up and tell me I was disgusting, that I was vile.
All the things that he was accusing you of were absolutely not true.
Nothing was ever true. Like, this is the thing, but I would really doubt myself, you know, especially when I'd like wake up and he'd be like, you were lying there with your eyes open, planning to leave me. And I'd be like, I literally was asleep. But then he would like only want me to sleep naked because he said if I didn't, then I was keeping myself from him. There were certain instances where he would push me and then he would say, you fell. And I would get really confused and I would think maybe I did. It resulted in him speeding down the motorway and saying that if I left him, or if I said that I didn't love him, and if I was going to leave him, that he would smash the car into the side of a wall. And I thought, wow, like he knew so much control over me that he would rather kill us both. And eventually he pulled over into a gas station, and I tried to unload my bags from the car. There were 3 men opposite the car, and I remember thinking, this is it. I was like, this is it, I'm done, like I can't do this anymore. And he picked me up and he threw me against the car and started strangling me. And that's when I realized I need to get help to get out of this relationship.
Another woman, stylist Carolyn Foe, also came forward with similar allegations from their relationship years earlier. Shia initially responded with a public statement saying, "I'm not in any position to tell anyone how my behavior made them feel. I have no excuses for my alcoholism or aggression, only rationalizations. I have been abusive to myself and everyone around me for years. I have a history of hurting the people closest to me. I'm ashamed of that history and am sorry to those I hurt. There is nothing else I can really say." But then, just months later, Shia appeared in interviews attempting to downplay the allegations, claiming that FKA Twigs was exaggerating and that their relationship was mutually toxic. He said, "I hurt that woman, and in the process of doing that, I hurt many other people and many other people before that woman." Shia, meanwhile, has largely disappeared from public life. So where does that leave us? What do we do with Shia LaBeouf? Here's the thing. Shia's story is a perfect example of how Hollywood builds people up, breaks them down, and then discards them when they no longer fit the mold. From the time he was 14 years old, Shia was sold as a product, first by Disney, then by Michael Bay, then by the entire studio system. He was never allowed to just be a person. He was always performing. And when he tried to rebel, when he tried to take control of his own narrative through art and honesty, Hollywood punished him for it. They called him crazy, difficult, ungrateful. But that doesn't excuse his behavior. You can be a victim of the industry and still be an abuser yourself. You can have a traumatic childhood and still hurt other people. Shia's pain doesn't justify the pain he allegedly caused others. The truth is, Shia LaBeouf is a cautionary tale, a reminder that child stardom is exploitation, that the entertainment industry doesn't care about your well-being, only your profitability, and that no amount of money or fame can heal the wounds of growing up too fast in a system designed to chew you up and spit you out. Shia once said, "I'm not a good person. I'm trying to be better." And maybe that's the most honest thing he's ever said, because at the end of the day, Shia LaBeouf isn't a hero or a villain. He's just a broken person trying to make sense of a life that was never really his to begin with. And Hollywood just moved on to the next kid.
Do it! Just do it! Don't let your dreams be dreams. Yesterday, you said tomorrow. So just do it! Make your dreams come true! Just do it!